Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to get into something really fascinating, pulling from a source that imagines Brené Brown in conversation with some of psychology's greatest minds. We're going to break down their insights on vulnerability, shame, and what it really, truly means to live a courageous, wholehearted life. Okay, so let's just dive right in with this core idea from Brené Brown. We have this idea that to really connect with people, we have to be perfect, we have to be strong, we have to have it all together. But what her research found was this total paradox. The real path to connection isn't about being perfect at all. It's about having the guts to be vulnerable, to show up even when you have no idea how it's going to turn out. What's funny is Brene never even meant to study vulnerability. She wanted to figure out connection, love, belonging. But it's wild because every time she'd ask someone about love, they'd end up talking about heartbreak. She'd ask about belonging, and they'd tell her about the most painful time they were ever excluded. The thread connecting everything wasn't some strategy for success. It was that raw, totally uncomfortable feeling of being seen. So what even is vulnerability? And this is super important. It's not weakness. Our source defines it as this emotional exposure. It's that act of showing up without all your armor on. It's saying, I love you first. It's asking for help. It's that moment of pure risk when you have absolutely no guarantees. Okay, so before we can even begin to think about being vulnerable, we have to look square in the face at the one thing that makes us build all that armor and hide. And that massive force is shame. So to even get a handle on it, we've got to know exactly what it is and, just as important, what it's not. And this is where the experts make a really critical distinction. Guilt, that's about our actions. It's the feeling, oops, I did something bad. And that feeling usually pushes us to try and fix things. But shame is different. It doesn't say you did something bad. It whispers, you are bad. It attacks who we are, and that feeling makes us want to just disappear. In fact, psychologist Paul Gilbert explains that shame isn't just a bad mood. It's a full-on threat response. It lights up the oldest, most primitive parts of our brain, the parts that are just trying to survive. Your brain starts frantically asking, am I safe? Will I get kicked out of the tribe for this? It literally sends our whole system into defense mode, which of course is the exact opposite of the open, trusting state we need to actually connect with people. But here's the good news. We are not powerless against shame. It has antidotes. And it's not one magic pill, but a mix of these really brave but also really ordinary practices. Shame loves to hide in the dark, right? Well, things like empathy and having honest conversations, they're like flipping on the lights. They just can't survive in that environment. Okay, so if being vulnerable feels that risky and shame is that painful, what do? Well, we do what any sane person would do. We protect ourselves. We build up this emotional armor. Our source material points to 3 main types of armor we all tend to use. Let's get into them. First up, we numb. We scroll endlessly, we shop, we eat, we drink, basically anything to take the edge off and avoid feeling discomfort. But, and this is the huge catch the experts point out, you can't pick and choose which emotions you numb. When you try to mute all the hard stuff like fear and shame, you end up muting the good stuff too, like joy and gratitude and real connection. Next, we have perfectionism. Perfectionism. This is a tricky one, right? Because our culture loves this one. We see it as being a high achiever. But according to the research, it's not about striving for excellence. It's really just a 20-ton shield that we carry around, hoping that if we're perfect enough, no one can judge us or blame us, and we won't have to feel that sting of shame. And the third piece of armor is certainty. When the world feels chaotic and uncertain, we might grab onto rigid beliefs or start blaming other people or just need to be the person who has all the answers. And it kind of works. It gives us this illusion of being in control. But man, it comes at a huge cost because it completely shuts down our curiosity and our ability to have a real open conversation. So this all boils down to a really powerful question. When we're using all this armor, numbing, perfectionism, certainty, we're not actually building a life. We're just in a constant negotiation with fear. It's all about escape, not about growth. So if we're all walking around in this armor, how in the world do we start taking it off? Well, the source points to this one foundational shift in our thinking, a breakthrough that changes absolutely everything. And that is the belief in our own inherent worthiness. And this was the big aha moment that really surprised Brown in her research. The people she interviewed who were living these really wholehearted lives, they weren't better or more successful or less messy than anyone else. The only real difference was that they operated from this deep, fundamental belief that they were enough, right now. just as they are. Okay, that sounds amazing. But let's be real. What if your entire life has taught you the exact opposite? What if you've learned that you're only worthy if you achieve this, or if you look like that? How do you actually build that belief from scratch? Well, the experts say it's not about some big dramatic change. It's about these small, consistent actions, like the ones you see here. Think of it like training a muscle. Every time you say one true thing, or you treat yourself with the same kindness you'd give a friend who's struggling, you're doing a rep. You're training your brain to believe you belong in your own life. All right, let's bring it all home. In this final section, we're going to see how all these pieces, the courage, the compassion, the worthiness, they all come together into what our source calls wholehearted living. And this part is so important. This is not about becoming a new person or having a certain kind of bubbly personality. It's a practice. It's a conscious choice that you make day after day about how you want to show up in your own life. And this just lays out the daily ingredients so perfectly. Wholehearted living is this amazing mix, right? It's the courage to be seen and the compassion to be kind to yourself when you are. It's about building real connection, but it's also about setting boundaries and understanding that rest isn't a reward. It's a requirement for being brave. And at the very center of it all, vulnerability. It's the path to everything else. So if there's one thing to take away from all of this, it's this incredibly powerful shift in perspective. Worthiness is not something you go out and earn. It's not a prize you get for fixing all your flaws. It's the starting line. It's something you just have to awaken to the fact that you've had it all along. And that brings us to our final thought for this explainer, a really practical, personal question for you to take with you. Looking at that armor we talked about, numbing, perfectionism, certainty, what's one piece, maybe just a small piece, that you might be willing to set down today?